Decoding differences. This came about in meetings in last year or so, and all of a sudden people started talking about, as Shigeru explained, the differences and similarities. But first, before going to those differences, I want to explain where SSE comes from. This is considered a new response to inequality and exclusion. There have been other examples before, like cooperatives or socialism or whatever, but that change that hasn't given the results we were expecting. What has changed in the last 50 years or so has been the globalization of the economy. 100 years ago, there were already different problems in the world, but what is different now in the last 5 or 6 decades is the whole global economy. Manufacturing is in one continent, banking in another continent, or whatever. I mean, this has really changed the world, and this was different. So people were, and this resulted in poverty and inequality like ever before. Like, for example, Latin America, inequality index really increased an awful lot during those years, and many other countries. And even today, the rich are richer than ever, and the poor are poorer than ever. So this brought people, instead of going to building, some people went into the politics and so forth, but at the grassroots, people say, we want to resist these effects of huge unemployment, huge inequality, but we will build alternatives. And this led to a first international meeting in 1997, where people from different continents, at that time, Asia was not yet involved, but they soon came involved. Some history of this, first of all. Social economy is an expression that originates from France, and this is over 150 years old. Mostly in France and the French-speaking countries, like in Belgium, French-speaking part of Belgium. Solidarity economy is more recent. It appeared in the mid-80s. From what literature has said, there are two people that first used the expression, was Jean-Louis Laville in France and Rosetto in Chile. And in France, there was already social and solidarity economy. The expression social and solidarity economy was developed in France in 1989, 1990, because there were two movements. There was a social economy, which was the credit unions, mutuals, and so forth, but there were also new movements. VPAS itself was formally created December 2002, and the expression social solidarity economy was adopted at that occasion. How did we come about the international recognition of SSE? After that first international meeting in 1997 in Lima, in Peru, where people from Europe, North America, Africa were there, this got the ball rolling. And they decided it was important to continue to meet. So they met again in 2001 here in Quebec City, where I live. And then in Dakar in Senegal, Luxembourg 2009, and Manila 2013. So as you can see, this covered the 5 continents. There's also Oceania, but it's much smaller, and there were no international meetings there. So this really was it's been a movement. It's not only organizing meetings. So this really, and while doing this helped to create in each continent a strong base for SSE. So the networks were built in Africa in 2004 or 5 when we met. Luxembourg was and formalized network in Europe and so forth. In Asia, this started a few years before. And since the beginning, the organization VPAS, we mentioned being, is a promotion of social solidarity economy. From the beginning, people got together to promote social solidarity economy at a global level, because locally or in each continent, it's not enough. You have to work at the global level. So this started well with the International Labor Organization, based in Geneva, which is all over the world. A meeting in South Africa. At that time, VPAS was participated in the event. There was Nancy Nimpton from Montreal, who was then with the Social Economic Network in Quebec. And there were a colleague from Senegal, from Mali in Africa. So, and this led to the creation later in 2013 of the United Nations Task Force on Social Economy. I need to mention the importance of this, very important what happened in the future since then. At that time, a dozen or more UN agencies based in Geneva who have been working in international development, like there's a International Labour Organization, FAO, Food and Agriculture Organization, UNRWA, which is a research organization, and United Nations Development Program and so forth. They've realized that we needed new approaches to the development in the world, and especially with the economic crisis of 2008, 2009, that's originated in the US. Unemployment rose, and we just couldn't continue to solve the problems, and poverty in the world, for example, unless we did something different. This has led to the creation of the United Nations Task Force. I've been privileged to be able to attend all the meetings since then, online and sometimes in person. Another important thing we did was at Rio Plus 20 in June 2012, we decided in REPAS that SSE would be important for the future Sustainable Development Goals. So this has been the track that was decided then, and after that it really went strongly. This led to this international networking with UN agencies, with ILO, International Labour Organization, and networks like REPAS and others. This created momentum to be able to have the International Labour Conference, which is held each year. This is all the member countries of the International Labour Organization meet and they debate on different subjects. So in June 2022, the theme for discussion was social and solidarity economy. And we were involved then as an observer organization to be able to attend the evening, meetings. I remember 10 days in a row having meetings online from where I live. So this really came about, and we'll see later, they adopted a decent work solidarity economy resolution. So this is great. And the UN resolution, which was adopted in April 18, 2023, called promoting a social and solidarity economy for sustainable development. I have to explain here that this came about in part because the UN was recognizing more and more that they were falling behind in achieving the SDGs for 2030. So a new approach was needed. The national definition of SSE adopted in the International Labour Organization, but also is this definition used in the UN resolution, is important. And people need to read and understand well what this means. For example, as you see highlighted here, SSE enterprises entities to serve the collective and or general interests, which are based on the principles of voluntary cooperation and mutual aid, democratic or participatory governance, autonomy and independence, and the primacy of people and social purpose of the capital. This is the key word, primacy of people and social purpose of capital, which is not the case in the global system we're living in. So there's recognition that needs to be something different, that needs to be strengthened in the world. So this is, even if this definition is a compromise, it defines quite well, and it's very close to the way REPAS sees what SSE is. And now, since we want to explore the differences between SSE and other aspects, now we'll go to the other aspects. There are other alternatives that have been there for a long time, but especially what is interesting to mention is that social entrepreneurship is presented by some people as a fundamental alternative to solve the problems. Some even say that social entrepreneurship is SSE. But first, we need to know where they come from, these people. They started in the US with Ashoka in 1980s. Skoll Foundation was created by another US organization based in California. Skoll was a private business who the founder made a lot of money, so he created a foundation to support social entrepreneurship. And then more recently, the Schwab Foundation for Social Entrepreneurship. Important to mention here, the Schwab Foundation was created by Hilda and Klaus Schwab, one of the founders of the World Economic Forum. So this is the think tank, let's say, of the global corporate sector. So interesting to see that they also went into the support of social entrepreneurship. Catalyst 2030 is an international network which was created in 2019 by the Schwab Foundation and the World Economic Forum, their partners, and they also created in 2020 the Global Alliance for Social Entrepreneurship, or also with World Economic Forum. So all these who, like Ashoka and Skoll, were working independently. They were giving awards every year to the social entrepreneurs, individuals who created businesses, social businesses. But now they're all together within the World Economic Forum. This was quite intriguing in some way, but it is a fact, and it's hard to say why they did this, but they did. So and many people in governments, because of corporations and everything else, World Economic Forum, which is well known globally, this became an important strategy for the World Economic Forum. There are also other alternatives that have been created in the last 30 or 40 years. For example, corporate social responsibility. This is fairly well known. This is corporations do this in good part. This is explained in a longer paper that you'll be able to read after this event, after this recording. This is voluntary by business, and often it's more like giving a good image of the corporation. This is a promotion of corporations that would be good. Inclusive business, this came about from G20. There's a promotion of the idea that big corporations needed to work with small businesses in the region where they are involved in to support job creation and so forth. Social business was invented by, it's a concept invented by Mohammed Yunus, who won the Nobel Prize for microcredit about in 2008 or so. And there's also recently the private finance in the world is organized into impact investing. So they're putting important funds ready to invest in mostly in the global south, not only, but mostly, but that it is investing. So there needs to be return on the investment, but they say that they do reach out to have more social impact. It's possible there is positive impacts, but again, the risk here is that the investors who have the money, they more or less decide where to invest and who to invest in what sector. This brought me and others to see what are these alternatives about. There are common features. They all talk of problems people are facing, such as poverty and exclusion, lack of jobs, decent income, and everything else. They realize that there are problems in the world, and they realize that this, in some way, an effect of the system that they're in, now distributing jobs to different continents and so forth. However, even if they do explain the problems, they don't explain the root causes of the problems people are living. What causes poverty? Is it because people are lazy or whatever else? This is not the case. It's clearly the systemic. When corporations move out of a country, they close the mines or whatever else, and people living there have no other way of income. So, I mean, and we can say, and we could talk about textile workers in Bangladesh or whatever. I mean, people, even working people are poor. So this is linked to the corporations always go to where the prices for the wages are lower, the social protection is weaker, unions are weaker, whatever. So this is so the corporation needs to reduce the costs. So they will go wherever they want. They can't find a place to produce. However, instead of tackling those issues, they say that the social entrepreneurship is core to solve the problems. In other words, it's not looking at the root causes, but working with to support people who are affected by the system we're living in. So, in other words, in some way, oddly, it's like if they were saying that if there is poverty and social problems and inequality, it's that because there's not enough social entrepreneurship. Clearly, the lack of social entrepreneurship is not the cause of the root problems the world is living in, for sure. So this is like a let's put it this way. I'll be. There's a word here which might shock some people, but it's like putting a plaster on a wound. I mean, it helps. It's important to do that to help people who are in poverty or excluded or young people unemployed and so forth. However, at the same time, we also need to look at the root causes and prevent for the future that things continue in the same way. So this is what I explain here. What does this mean for SSE for us? Even if not SSE, in light of the definition of the ILO and UN, which we saw previously, all these approaches do create businesses that do good in the communities, or at least most of them, in some way, like social and medium enterprise, small and medium enterprises that also create jobs in the communities. There is a increase of poverty and problems in the communities. This created, we could say, business opportunities for people to create businesses. At the local and country level, depending on circumstances, SSE entities can collaborate with such initiatives, as we can collaborate with SMEs in our communities. Local development can be supported by all these people working together. And many young people are attracted to these approaches say they are not attracted to the values of the corporate sector. They want to do it differently. If you question young people in universities, business schools, whatever, they are more conscious of problems, so they want to do things differently. This brings me to a final thoughts about this. We need to distinguish between leadership of the social entrepreneur and related initiatives that are now under the fold of the World Economic Forum. There are thousands of social entrepreneurs at the grassroots level that are committed to create locally more socially minded businesses. So this is clear. We think, and I'm quite sure, that there are many, maybe a majority of people in social entrepreneurship are open, are willing to work to solve the problems, fundamental problems in society. Better taxation for the rich, wealth tax that's supported by many people. So we need to have these people, and this is those small businesses in the countries are not a problem by itself. But also with us, to work with us for more fundamental changes on our societies, to build together an economy based on needs expressed in 1948 Universal Declaration of Human Rights, such as food, housing, medical care, social services. we have to really understand that this means that the countries of the world in 1948 sees us that housing, food, medical care, social service are human rights. Society needs to provide an organized society, organized economy, so that people can have all these things that are essential to life. However, the system we're living in has not accomplished that. So we need to have fundamental change. This is why it's important to come back to the core value of SSE, which is like the resolution does, the primacy of people and social purpose of capital. And we also, more recently now, we could add and the planet over capital. So primacy of people and social purpose over people and the planet is important. So this is the fundamental mission that we pass and more global SSE movement has. There's a long way to go, but we don't have any choice if we want to improve the world we're living in. So with this document, with this interview, we'll receive links to the papers we produced. So this will be, and we can have maybe webinars or other meetings. This is a very, very, very short presentation here. It's important to read and look at the more fundamental documents that we have. Well, thank you very much for listening, and